Hi there. Welcome. Today is our first lesson of six regarding the book Spiritual Power Tools. And so I'm glad you got to join us. And I hope that you'll find some value in this whole process. So we're just going to basically look at the first three chapters of this book for lesson one, or week one, if you may. And the soul is chapter one, from intellectual to intuition, and chapter three, meditation. So let us begin. So, what I wanted to do was, I realized when looking at this material that there might be some terms that we want to be clear on, that we all understand what they mean. So, I took the liberty of using The Revealing Word by Charles Fillmore, one of our co founders. And so, I took three terms that I wanted to go over with you. So, why don't we begin that? And I'm going to share with you my screen and created a PowerPoint. So, here it goes. So the first thing is spiritual power tools, and so we are studying this book. And the one term that I thought needed defining is soul, soul. And so on page four, the soul is the link between God and your physical form. Revealing Word defines the soul as man's consciousness, the underlining idea back of any expression. In man, the soul is the many accumulated ideas back of his present expression. In its original and true sense, the soul of man is the expressed idea of divine mind. So when we are looking at the terminology in this book by Jane Hart, is that when the word soul is mentioned, and this is uh, very prominent throughout this book. In fact, the subtitle is Support for Your Soul. So your soul is what accumulates all of your experiences. It's man's consciousness. It's what's sitting there, the underlining idea back of any expression. So that means anytime we do something, it's coming from our soul. Now, the question is it coming in a good way or a bad way? And you get to decide how that unveils from within you. And that's why we spend so much time on the Sunday worship services about below the line and above the line behavior. The more often we can become aware of our behavior, meaning we're aware that it's below the line and we're going to make a shift and make it above the line, and the more often we are above the line, the more our consciousness will gravitate to those principles of being above the line. So it's the underlining expression. So in man, there are many accumulated ideas in the back of his present expression. So we're living this life and we express. We have a position in areas. We're short, we're tall, we're thin, we're medium weight. We hunger for things, we thirst for things. These are all things that are underlining in the back of our consciousness that come forth in our expression of man. It's our expression. I hope that helps. So let's look at the next term, which is the law of rebirth. Now we're on page five. The law of rebirth or reincarnation is the process that propels the soul forward in its evolution. So reincarnation is this term, and Revealing Word defines it as when a soul leaves the body, it rests for a season. There's a pause. Then innate desire for material expression asserts itself, and the ego seeks the primal cell and builds another body. Reincarnation will continue until the ego awakens to the Christ mind and through it builds an imperishable body. And that's what we think Jesus did. He built this body that was imperishable. Now, he chose to let go of that body through the resurrection and hanging on the cross story that we get to look at when the Easter season or when the Lenten season starts, which is not too far away. So, reincarnation takes whatever we've learned in this lifetime and carries it over to the next expression of the human body form. But the soul leaves the body, and that consciousness within the soul goes with us until we reincarnate ourselves in the process of this forward evolution, because we're moving into a process, a goal, an objective, a mission, to be able to find ourselves totally connected with God, the divine mind. And when that happens, we no longer need the body form. So reincarnation is mentioned in this book, and I wanted to be sure that you folks were mindful of it. And then on page 7, she says, you must develop an advanced style of thought, which is your intuition. It's the sixth sense. Revealing Word also defines intuition as the natural knowing capacity, the inner knowing, the immediate apprehension of spiritual truth without resort to intellectual means, the wisdom of the heart. It is very much surer in guidance than the head. When we trust spirit and look to it for understanding, a certain confidence in the invisible good develops. This faith awakening the so-called sixth sense, intuition, or divine knowing, through the power of intuition, man has direct access to all knowledge and the wisdom of God. That intuition. See, it works through the heart, not the mind. The mind works through the senses, and the senses can be very wrong. Just because I can sell you, think about popcorn. Think about it being, you walk into a movie theater and what do you smell? Buttered popcorn. It drives the senses to see popcorn. I'm talking about popcorn right now, and you can smell popcorn. And yet there is no popcorn in your universe right now. So the senses are not always based on truth. They're definitely not based on intuition. Intuition is the knowing. You're sure of it. It's like, well, I got this hunch that, all things are going to work out. Well, that may be an affirmative statement that we're making, but the intuition within us has faith that knows it will all work out. While our brain will tell us, statistics say this will never come to a good fruition. That's the brain. That's the intellectual means. We are not going to, when we follow our intuition, we're using our sixth sense, not the five senses. And that's important for us. So you see from reading this material, and the last word is meditation, but I didn't create a slide for that because meditation is the quiet time that we take to listen to God, listen to the wisdom of God. That's when we have that direct access. That's when the intuition can kick in. That's when we can quiet the intellectual mind and say, hey, I want to know what God sees for me. I want to know what God is feeling for me. That's the importance of meditation. So you'll know as you continue forward in this material that the idea of using our meditative time, that's critical. That becomes this process for us to fully grasp the idea that getting still and connecting with God has to be part of our experience of knowing the soul, understanding what we've grasped within each element of new information. You see, because when we are in that evolutionary process of learning something new about ourselves, meditation is the tool which we can use that wisdom and use the essence of the knowingness of all that awaits for us. And that's the quest. That's the spiritual power tool. So I invite you, if you're already currently meditating, to increase your time with meditation because we can find ourselves in a box. Sometimes we meditate so often and so much that we go into a rhythm where we're probably not really tapping into the resources of God. And of course, if you're not currently meditating, highly recommended. It's part of our expression. It's part of who we get to know within us, that intuitive nature, that divine mind of God. And that's what we want. That's what we want to feel and express and know without any hesitation that you're working with God. versus our human body and our intellectual mind thinking we know and we really haven't tapped in to the resources of God. That's the good part. That's the part that can be so rewarding in our expression with God. And that's the quest, to know and love and serve God more. Because when we do that, wow, wonderful things can develop. So we've defined soul, reincarnation, and intuition. And I hope that you'll glean some insight from that. And so, with that in mind, let us, with this in mind, we get to look at the discussion questions. I'd like to leave you with a few questions that you and your groups can look at. And of course, if your group has got some other questions that you'd like to pursue, there's certainly no ground rules for it. But I did want to leave you with 3 discussion questions. Week 1 discussion questions. What current changes in your present life have you observed as your soul is developing a closer connection with your divine self? What happens? What's happened in your life? What's happened to your life that you can see that your soul is developing tools? Maybe it's because you now meditate. I don't know. Maybe it's because you're taking more time to be in the presence and to be still and to follow your intuition more. What is it? Share it with the group. Do you believe in reincarnation? If so, why? And if not, why? There are no right and wrong answers to any question in spirit groups. It is where you are at this moment. And that's the beauty of the spiritual growth. You see, you're not better or worse than anybody else because they're on their journey. You're on your journey, and yours is special to you. And so we don't have to compare ourselves to one another because there is no comparison. You are where you are, and that's all there is to it. There isn't any agenda with it. There's no right, wrong, good, bad, or indifferent. It just is. And the third question is, share a time when you moved away from your intellect and into your intuition to make a decision. And what was the outcome of that decision? What happened for you because you followed your intuition? I hope that these questions will lend itself to help you have a great experience in spirit groups. And this is just week 1, and there'll be another video for week 2. With that, God bless, and I wish you only good things in your unfolding of your experience. And I know that this too is perfect for you. And so it is. God bless.